Well, as lawmakers try to hammer out a budget deal, President Obama is also pushing for another, more scaled-down proposal in the meantime, just in case that doesn't happen. One that, according to many critics, would only deal with half the problem. So is this really the best course of action? First, listen to what the president had to say about this during his weekly address.
Leaders in Congress are working on a way to prevent this tax hike on the middle class, and I believe we may be able to reach an agreement that can pass both houses in time. But if an agreement isn't reached on time, then I'll urge the Senate to hold an up or down vote on a basic package that protects the middle class from an income tax hike, extends vital unemployment insurance for Americans looking for a job, and lays the groundwork for future progress on more economic growth and deficit reduction.
Alexis McGill Johnson is the executive director of the American Values Institute, and Ford O'Connell is chairman of Civic Forum PAC and the Forum Outreach Director for John McCain for President. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks, Heather.
Well, thank you for having us.
Well, the pledge to work on a new bill is by no means a solution to the sweeping set of tax hikes set to hit January 1st, followed by steep spending cuts. Lawmakers still have to write the bill. They have to produce something that can pass both chambers in time. Will they get it done? Ford?
I think they can get it done. The question is whether or not House Republicans will be able to really push Senate Democrats in the right direction with respect to taxes. President Obama has shown no leadership on this, and what they really need to do is minimize the damage from what President Obama is trying to push for the higher tax cuts, because they're going to need public opinion on their side in the new year to really make structural entitlement reform, because at the end of the day, we're only talking about taxes, and we know we're $16 trillion in debt, and the real problem right now is entitlement spending, because that's 62 to 65% of the federal budget, and 10,000 people are turning 65 every day.
Yeah.
We've got this problem's ballooning by the hour, and we got to do something about it. But right now, I think House Republicans are going to have to take it on the chin and get the deal, because we need public opinion on our side.
Alexis, what do you think? Will they get it done?
I certainly hope so. I mean, I think the lack of leadership has actually been on the House side. Speaker Boehner couldn't even get his own bill passed, and so, I mean, he's been fumbling the ball down the line. I think what the president is doing with this up and down vote is really trying to bring oversight to the American people. I mean, in the spirit of the holidays, he's trying to let the American people decide who's been naughty and who's been nice. And I think Ford is right on one thing. The American people are very, very tired of this. They think Congress is to blame and that they need public opinion back on their side. These short-term solutions are going to make a huge difference in people's lives, particularly people who are unemployed. And these long-term decisions are not things that need to be decided.
Well, Speaker Boehner did, back to what you said in the beginning, not to cut you off, Speaker Boehner did have a bill and the House did have a plan. But Ford, just to jump off of that, if there is a Reid-McConnell deal in the Senate, it would probably include an extension of current, income tax rates for most Americans, a measure to block a scheduled expansion of the alternative minimum tax, an extension of unemployment benefits, and possibly a measure to prevent a scheduled cut in Medicare payments to doctors. So how will the House respond to any deal in the Senate?
Well, it depends really what McConnell and Reid really broker. I mean, if it's something that's a good deal that we can move to the new year and start looking at structural entitlement form, then we'll take it. I completely disagree with Alexis, by the way. The president is not showing leadership with this deal. What he's trying to do is push the blame onto House Republicans and break them. He's not interested in just winning this issue. He's interested in getting his agenda through, which includes more regulations, gun control possibly, and immigration reform. All he wants to do is win the blame game. He's not interested in leadership, because if he was interested in leadership, he would have brokered from the beginning in good faith, right. And because he just ignores entitlement reform, he's kidding
Alexis,
himself.
I'm going to let you respond to that, because when it does come to spending cuts, President Obama says that his plan, his own words, we just heard that at the top of the segment, quote, lays the groundwork for that in the future. The last big budget deal in the summer of 2011, it ended with precisely the same promise, which in turn ended in failure and the fiscal crisis facing the country today. So why believe him this time?
Well, I mean, the ball is actually not in his court right now. The ball is in the Senate and the House court to come up with a bill that he can sign. And so he's trying to set a tone right now about what would be acceptable in the short term. I think these long-term issues around entitlements are exactly that. They're long-term issues. And to create manufacture a decision deadline of 48 hours from now is kind of irresponsible, because we're talking about systems that have been around for decades decades now that many Americans depend on. We're talking about systems that are really earned benefits. They're not entitlements, systems that we have paid money into. And we're also
Alexis,
talking
we're
about
down to the last minute because the president does not want to deal with the debt. He doesn't want to deal with structural entitlement reform. At the end of the day, we've been talking about this for 4 years.
If the president and the House and the Senate were serious about dealing with debt, we'd be dealing with the cost of monopolies on medical costs, right? We'd be dealing with with campaign finance and lobbies driving these costs up.
Alexis,
just let me interject here to both you, Ford, and Alexis.
Raising taxes fix our out-of-control spending problem.
The president,
you're making a moral argument here.
Okay, the president did offer to deal with the debt. In fact, last summer, July 2011, he offered to raise the debt ceiling by closing loopholes and not raising taxes. Quote, give us $1.2 trillion in additional revenues, which could be accomplished without hiking tax rates. It could be simply accomplished by eliminating loopholes. That's what the president said, and that's exactly what Republicans offered him weeks ago. So why didn't he take that offer, Alexis? Why the ultimatum and insisting on tax increases, and now here we are, days before we reach the deadline?
Because the Republicans lost this election, and so the president actually does have a little bit more political capital to spend than the Republicans do. John Boehner would get a much worse deal than he would have gotten during this summer when we were talking, when Ford and I actually were on this channel talking about the debt limit. And that is because the right has been captured by anti-tax interests, by Grover Norquist, by people who won't come to the table and have a reasonable conversation about modest tax increases in relationship to modest cuts in spending where the majority of American people are. And so that's why he's kicking into the Senate, because the House is acting like a bunch of kids.
Ford, final word.
The president is backtracking on his deal because all he's concerned about doing is breaking House Republicans on this issue because he wants to get his agenda through before the 2014 election, and he feels the best way to do this is make House Republicans and John Boehner, who's now the least popular congressional leader, look like bad guys. That's all this is about, and this is political theater and not good government.
All right.
This
Thank
is
you
not
both.
leading.
We appreciate you joining us. We'll see what happens. Hours away. The clock is ticking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.